Good evening. Welcome to the November 15, 2016 meeting of the Milford Planning and Zoning Commission. If I could ask you now at this time to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May we please have roll call from left to right.
Richard Lutz.
Mike Dolan.
John Grant.
Carl S. Moore.
Scott Marlowe.
Tom Nickel.
And I'm Anthony Sutton, Chairman of the Board. We are joined this evening tonight by David Sulkus, City Planner, and Phyllis Leggett, our Board Clerk. First item on this evening's agenda is a Connecticut General Statutes 8-24 approval for the Mayor's Capital Improvement Plan for 2017 through 2021. Mr. Sulkus, is there staff comment on or introduction of this item?
No. I was assuming that someone from either the mayor's office or one of the other fiscal departments might be here this evening.
Should we pass the matter until someone from that office comes, or can we take it up on our own?
That's entirely up to you. If you have questions about it, then you might want to wait. If you have no questions about it, you can act on it.
Well, I think to give the board the opportunity, if they have any questions, we will pass the matter. If no one comes from the mayor's office this evening, we will take it up at the next meeting, the first meeting in December. Next item on the agenda is 24 Maddox Avenue. It's the petition of Jeff Adelino for a coastal management site plan review approval to construct a single-family residence on map 27, block 451, parcel 8, of which Black Labs LLC is the owner. Good evening, Mr. Adelino.
Good evening. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Everybody hear me? Jeff Adelino, 5 Mill Pond Close, Milford, Connecticut, representing Black Labs LLC, looking for approval to build a single-family house on 24 Maddox. We've gone through all the agencies and got their feedback and pretty much have addressed all of them. There was a house there since 1934. We've since tore that down and have had wetlands approval and now coming before this board for CAM approval.
Thank you. Mr. Sulkus, do you have comment on the petition?
Yeah, the application was reviewed by Steve Harris, and I'll just cut right to his comments. The project meets the criteria of Section 5.12 of the zoning regulation. Staff recommends approval in accordance with comments from Engineering, Public Works, and Planning and Zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Sulkus. Are there questions for the petitioner or for Mr. Sulkus? Mr. Grant.
I have a couple of questions. The site plan shows the average grade at 3.8. The coastal application says that the average grade is 3.5. And there is no elevation marks on the construction drawings at all to show anything. According to 5.8 of our regulations, I can't tell whether or not the materials below the flood line are actually flood-proof type materials because there's no elevations marks on the drawings themselves. Also, when I do, on drawing number 1, the elevation shows that there are 2x10 floor joists. The section shows that there's TGI floor joists. And when you do the math, basically what happens is the eave comes out to 36 feet above the average grade, and maximum height is 35 feet to the midpoint. of the roof. That's another problem. Basically, the style of roof that's on the structure, the measurement that's on sheet 1 is improperly done. It's supposed to be from the ridge to the highest break point on the roof. So basically, at this particular point in time, if the elevation, if the average elevation is correct, you're going to be about 6 feet above the required 35 feet. So and the survey drawing has no elevation or spot points on it to verify exactly what the average elevation is. So there's a number of things that can't be verified, and by going to calculations, you're already, without even adding a roof to it, you're already over the 35 feet.
Well, the 35 feet is to the midpoint of the roof, is it not?
If you look at drawing 1, the elevation,
at it now, yeah.
right?
Yep.
All right, it shows 35, it shows basically to the midpoint of the roof. That mark where the midpoint is incorrect. Because it's a gambrel type roof, it's supposed to be from the highest peak to the first break in angle, all right? So that is, number 1 is incorrect. And then, like I said, if I take the section drawing, which is on drawing, drawing number 3, if you take that section drawing, it doesn't coordinate with the elevation drawing on sheet 1. And if you do the math and add everything up, you're at 36 feet to the eave point. So, and that's not even adding the roof. So like I said, you're another 6 feet above that. So at this particular point in time, the drawings are incorrect. You're over the 35-foot mark, and there's no way to verify the average grade because the site plan doesn't show all the marks. So it's a number of things that I find wrong with it. So I would recommend that you basically go back through, redo the drawings and the site plan and get it correct, and then re-present it. That would be my opinion and my recommendation.
Spot elevation
You have to say your name, just so you know.
Hi, this is Paul Stoll. I did the land survey and the plot plan. John?
On a survey, basically for the average grade, by our definition, you're supposed to have 2 spot elevations on each side of the structure. One for the high point, one for the low point. If you look at that site plan, there's very few spot marks on it, and there isn't 2 on each side of the building, so there's no way to verify what the actual average grade is.
Well, we have on there 3.8 in the back of the property and 3.6 in the front of the property.
3.0.
I'm sorry, what's that right there?
So that we got all 4 corners of the property shown.
On the plot plan.
Spot elevations. That's on the existing condition survey? Yeah, we have the spot elevation shown on the 4 corners of the property on the existing condition survey?
This section is wrong.
Yeah. Nothing I can do about that.
No, yeah, I understand.
Yes. I see that they're in the corners of the property, but they're not on the sides of the building, which is what our regulations require.
Okay. I reviewed this with Greg, and, you know, he seemed to be fine with it. It is a really flat piece of property.
Because you're showing +4 on the side at one point, so that would be high. So I would say, like I said, there's not enough
That's proposed.
points to actually figure out what the grades are. The average grade would be.
That's a grading point. The
That's a
point 4, the
proposed
4 on
on
the
the-
side is a proposed grading point. We're
On the-
grading the property both ways, into the rain garden and into the catch basin on the property, on the front, in the street.
All right, well, it still doesn't, even with that, the marks that aren't on here, even with that, like I said, if you do the calculations you're at 36 feet to the eave, and that's not even counting the roof. Plus on sheet 1, the calculation for the midpoint of the roof is incorrect. It should be higher.
29 feet.
That's because of the gable.
I don't,
If you have
you're
time-
actually, you're going to that small, instead of going to the midpoint of the gambrel, you're going to that roof on the top?
Basically, the way the regulation reads is it's from the highest peak, all right, highest point, to the first break in slope, all right? If you look at at 1, you're not, it went from the peak to the eave, and that's incorrect.
28 feet, 29 feet. He's going to the top of the ceiling. I see what you're saying. He's going to the top of the ceiling. So if we change it to a gambrel roof, you're going to pick the midpoint of the gambrel roof.
No, on the gambrel roof, it's from the highest peak to the first slope break. And if you look at the 1, you'll see that that midpoint line is not in the right spot.
That clearly
It's
is
gotta be
defined
higher.
in the
And like I
regulations for a
said, and if
gambrel.
you look at the elevation, the section drawing, all right, you're at 36 feet at the eave. So, and that's without a roof. So there's a number of things that are incorrect and don't coordinate on the drawings. So I think you need to go back and redo them.
Okay.
Are there additional questions for the petitioner at this time? Mr. Sulkus, do you wish to add anything?
If the applicant is going to go back and address Mr. Grant's issues, then I recommend that the board table the item.
Are there any further questions for Mr. Sulkus or for the petitioner? Seeing none, does anyone wish to make a motion relative to the petition at this point, or a motion to postpone the matter for a certain amount of time? Mr. Grant,
I'd like to make a motion to table this until the next meeting.
is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Nichol, does anyone wish to be heard on the motion to table? Seeing none, we'll call that to a vote. All in favor? All opposed? The motion to table passes. Thank you, Mr. Adalino. Next item on the agenda is 687 East Broadway, Zone R5. It's the petition of Thomas Lynch Esquire for coastal management site plan review approval to construct a single-family residence on map 22, block 474, lot 6, of which Tom McKiernan is the owner. Good evening, Attorney Lynch.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Members of the board, just for the record, my name is Thomas Lynch. I'm an attorney with the law firm Lynch, Trimbicki, and Boynton. My office is located here in Milford at 63 Cherry Street. And I'm here tonight representing my client, Tom McKiernan. And along with me also is my good friend, John Whitko, who is the project architect. And this is the last step in the administration process to hopefully enable Tom to move forward with his plans to build a single-family residence on this site. So just by a little way of background, the property at 687 East Broadway is a non-conforming lot. It currently contains a house that was built in roughly 1910. It sustained a serious amount of damage from the combination of the two storms, Irene and Sandy, over the years 2010 and 2012, and my client recently purchased the property this past summer. In August, we appeared before the Zoning Board of Appeals and presented an application for 2 variances to vary the side yard setbacks on the property. We also, as part of that application, minimized some other nonconformities that are on site. The left side of the Codispoti plan, sheet SP1 that's been given to you tonight, shows the existing dwelling. You can see that it is right on the street line of East Broadway, which is pretty comment along that stretch. And what we've done here is obtain the variances to move the house back so there is a conforming front yard setback, maintaining a side yard variance on one side that is conforming, and then the other side yard was varied to allow the construction of the proposed house. The proposed house is a three-level residence, 3 levels of living space with a garage with breakaway walls below. It's located in the VE zone with elevation, first floor at elevation 13. And basically we're before you now with the application that was submitted. It was reviewed by Steve Harris as well as Greg Podleski, the city engineer. I believe your file shows favorable reports relative to both reviews. There were some comments that Mr. Podleski had in his memorandum which have been addressed or will be addressed before the obtaining of a building permit. But basically, as I said, we're at the end of the process and ask you for your approval to move forward with this. Now, John has prepared the building plans. I'll turn things over to him to have him go through the floor plans and the elevations of the structure, and then if there's any questions, both of us will be available to try to answer those for you. Thanks.
Good evening, John Wicko, office at 50 Broad Street. I guess I could review the site if you guys need me to. There were some items from the city engineer regarding the title of the splash pad that we have for water, stormwater. That was corrected. We also had a comment regarding the leaders from the building coordinating that with that splash pad. And those have all been taken care of, and the drawings you have do reflect those comments already. So they've been taken care of already. The variance really kind of dictates where the house went. We're behind the coastal jurisdiction line, so every aspect of the site is conforming with our new rules. The building starts on A1. It shows foundation plan, which will consist of, I think A6 might show this the best. The building section 1, A6, shows the foundation underground, which will, with the sandy soil that we have, will be driving helical piles that are screwed into the sand, and then a cap on those piles will be formed underneath the frost line, and below the scoring line, we go fairly deep on that for future movement of sand. And then there's a grade beam and reinforced concrete piers that go up to the underside of what would be the start of the first floor for the wood construction. So everything from the first floor down is solid and reinforced. So the wood construction starts at the first floor deck. And then we have the 2.5-story structure, and the average height is 34 feet 10 inches to the midpoint from the gable roof lines. The floor plan. Back to A1, the floor plans show, as I said, the foundation plan. It's all underground. The garage plan is called. Shows the piers and the configuration, and also the breakaway walls with a 16-foot overhead door to allow the cars to be parked on site under the building. There's enough room with this layout to accommodate 4 cars. We're trying to get as many cars off the street as possible. In this neighborhood, it's a pretty big issue. And then we have the detail for the breakaway wall and the concrete slab that the cars will be sitting on. And then A2 and A3 show the living conditions. The areas of the building the total living area is 2,161 square feet, with 1,080 square feet of garage and 585 square feet of the decks and stairs. And the entrance, you walk up on the exterior onto this, the porch, we're calling it, and the front door is located on the side of the building. You continue around, again, on an open deck, and there's a egress stair on the back side of that, of the deck. So we have 2 ways out and access to the water. And then A3 shows the 3rd floor plan with the living space up there. And the elevations call out the different materials. The AE13 is identified on the building section and with different building, with heights of the floor. So all the materials below that AE 13 are compliant to the FEMA standards for non-porous and non-absorbent and not being damaged by the 100-year floods. We also have room for mechanicals underneath the 1st floor deck and also in a flat roof section within a dormer for the air conditioning compressors that are up on these areas there that we accommodate the additional mechanical units. And yeah, A5 are the other 2 elevations, and then A6 are the building sections. So that describes the building and the site briefly. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
Thank you, Mr. Wicko. Mr. Sulkus, do you have comment on the petition?
Again, this was reviewed by Mr. Harris, and his comments were as followed. Staff notes the plan conforms to Section 5.12 of the zoning regulations and recommends approval in accordance with the comments from the Engineering and Public Works Department.
Thank you. Does the board have questions for the petitioner or Mr. Sulkus? Mr. Grant.
I have a couple of questions. The level listed as attic is showing a bathroom up there. By our zoning regulations, that is considered a living or habitable space. What's the use of it? It's the proposed use.
As I described, I should have made it more clear. That label attic is incorrect. There is a bathroom, there is a storage room, and it's a family room with guests sleeping. So it is a living area that is part of the 2,161 square feet. So I apologize for that.
The other question I have is, I could not find any dimensions on the height of the cupola. What's the height of the cupola?
I would need to scale that for you, but it's, from looking at it, looks to be around 5 feet tall to the midpoint of that roof.
If you scale it, it's 5 feet 4 inches.
Okay, so
Okay.
it was a close guess.
Which you're not supposed to do, as you and I know. You're not supposed to scale drawings. Our zoning regulations require it to be no more than 5 feet above the peak. So I
We
would
could lower that
strongly
for you.
suggest that some dimensions are placed onto it, so when it's constructed.
Sure, we can lower that for you. Thank you for that.
All right. And then the last thing I have is actually not a zoning thing. It's just a note. I'm sure you're aware that it is a 4-story residence. So by building code, you're going to need, if you wanted to use the IRC for the construction of it, you're going to need to go to the state for a modification, because the IRC only goes up to 3 stories.
Thank you. Yeah, I was planning on reviewing this with the Chief Building Inspector, Mr. Correll.
And the last question I have actually is on the site plan. I could not find sufficient marks on the site plan to verify the 6.5 average grade. So therefore, in taking that, I did some math and added things up as it goes up. And I mean, I'm not going to quibble over 4 inches or so, but basically it shows that your midpoint is about 4 or 5 inches above the 35 feet. If you just do the math based on that. And like I said, and that's based on the fact that on the site plan, I could not find enough points to show that, to verify that you have a 6.5 average.
I'll confer with Joe Codispoti, and we'll get some more spot elevations and do a calculation, and we can submit that to Mr. Sulkus, just to clarify that aspect. Thanks.
Are there additional questions from the board for the petitioner? Mr. Nichol.
Yeah, one of your line items here said, the proposed new construction will terminate at the high water line.
Yes.
You went down there today, most of that lot was full of water.
Well, it was an unusual day today. It's not a normal high tide with the supermoon and the perigee moon. So that's why it's in the flood zone, because on occasion the water does creep up, and that's why everything is out of the ground and all the materials that are below that 13. So the average height of the tide is just that, not on a worst case or best case scenario, but it's an average that is done by the surveyor who is qualified to make that judgment.
So where would the high water line be on this lot?
It's located on the SP1. It's called out as the coastal CGS line, coastal jurisdiction line, which was, I think there's a date on that too, what day it was verified, and with the elevation of that with that date. So it is on there. I saw it this afternoon.
I guess just what I'm saying is you're going to build there, and the water's going to, if you get a high tide, you're not going to be able to build.
That is a consideration during construction. Tides fluctuate even normally 2.5 feet from month to month, so it needs to be mapped out very appropriately.
Are there further questions for the petitioner? Mr. Sulkus, do you have anything else to add? Seeing none, does anyone wish to make a motion relative to the petition? Mr. Grant.
I'd like to make a motion to table it until verification on the average grade and the cupola height is provided to the zoning department.
Is there a second for that motion? Mr. Nichol. Does anyone wish to be heard on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? All opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is a public hearing for 192 Meadow Street, Zone R12.5, the petition of Gina Rivera for special permit and amendment to a site plan review to establish a daycare facility on map 76, block 917, parcel 3AG, of which Cornerstone Christian Church is the owner. Good evening, Ms. Rivera.
Good evening. I am here to petition the board to grant me approval to move my existing daycare center. We've been there almost 19 years to 192 Meadow Street. The existing building, the outside will stay the same. The inside will be renovated in its entirety to house the daycare.
Thank you. Mr. Sulkus, do you have comment on the petition?
Yes. They propose, I'll just read you the review. Once Upon a Time Daycare proposes to change the use and occupy the already existing Cornerstone Christian building on Meadow Street to a child daycare center. The applicant proposes 2 changes to the site. 1, add an outdoor play area surrounded by fencing and bollards, and 2, add 2 handicap parking spaces in front of the building. The proposal complies with the zoning regulations.
Thank you, Mr. Sulkus. Does the board have questions for the petitioner or Mr. Sulkus? Seeing none, does anyone wish to make a motion relative to the petition? Mr. Grant.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the application for daycare at 192 Meadow Street.
Is there a second?
It's public.
Very sorry. I'm still in coastal site plan review mode. My apologies. Are there any additional questions from the board at this time? Seeing none at this point, it is the opportunity of our fellow residents, members of the public, to comment on the application. Is there, if anyone is here to speak either in favor or against the application, I ask that you do so now. First, I would like to ask that people in favor of the application speak, and I'd like, just as far as guidelines go, please, when you approach the podium, please state your name and address, spelling your name for the record. Please make all your comments directed to the board and not the petitioner. Please try and keep your comments as clear and concise as possible for us. Please try and limit yourself to 3 minutes in the event that there are many people that wish to speak. If you wish to speak longer than 3 minutes, we certainly can give you another turn after everyone has had the opportunity. That said, is there anyone that wishes to speak in favor of the application? Good evening.
For the record, Ronald Wasmer, professional engineer, land surveyor. Just coming up to the podium, I did draw up the site plan for Ms. Rivera, so if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to be heard in favor of the application?
My name is Lynn Ramos. I live at 25 Gordon Road in back of this property. I'm in favor, but I do have questions regarding the fencing and the shrubbery, the trees in the area, and how they're going to be handled.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to be heard in favor of the application?
Yeah, Bruce Kolwitz, 180 Meadow Street, next door to the property. Actually, Lynn's question is, I know the answer to that one, because when they did the original church that was there, United Pentecostal, they were supposed to keep the fence and the shrubbery in good repair. And the fence in many places is not in good repair. I mean, on my side, I think in the back and some of the others, which needs to be done. They're also supposed to have sufficient arborvitae or some sort of vegetation that goes above that fence. I don't have any problem with the daycare. I mean, I think it's a good use for it, because since they've moved to the building on Wheeler's Farm Road, it's not being used that much. So if we can just make sure, Mr. Sulkus would look back in the records there, you'll find it. And it's many, many years ago. It was back in the 70s. I don't even remember that long, David. Long time ago. But if he could look in there and just make sure, because that's all that I require, and I'm sure that that's all the abutting neighbors require, just that the fence is in good repair and that they keep the vegetation above the fence. So that's all. But I'm in favor of it as long as they do those things.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to be heard in favor of the application? Seeing no one else at this time, I would ask if anyone that wishes to be heard in opposition to the application, please approach the podium.
Good evening. My name is Patricia Wilson. I live at 317 West River Street, directly across from the Cornerstone Church that is now, I just heard tonight, going to become a full-time daycare. I have a question. The traffic on Meadow Street and West River is extremely busy. With the church there, we had parking everywhere, we have trouble with people stopping at the stop sign. The driveways for this daycare are right on top of that corner. I want to know what they're going to do about the traffic. They haven't mentioned how many children are going to be in this daycare. Are they going to be dropped off every day? What their hours of operation are going to be? We have a lot of new traffic in our neighborhood because we just got given a marijuana clinic, 6 houses from my house. So I want to know what they're going to do about the traffic. I'm not against the daycare necessarily, but where's the playground going to be? They don't have any frontage in the front to put children out there. The back of this church is all paved. Where is that going to be? And also behind this church, there is a private home. So I would like to know what they're going to be doing about the excess traffic. Are we going to look like Matheson Elementary in the morning? We have Matheson school buses going by us all the time. The traffic on this corner is terrible. We have a 100-year-old tree right there on the corner with a stone mentioning that the property used to be a farm. People constantly run the stop sign, 10, 20, 100 times a day. That's my problem. Also, parking. The church doesn't have a lot of parking. Is this daycare going to have a lot of professionals working in it, taking up parking behind the building? What are they going to be doing with the building? Are they going to raise the roof? What's this interior change going to be? All I ever saw was a sign outside this building saying, come here tonight, there is a request for a special permit. There has been no information to the neighborhood exactly what's going to be happening with this building, and I need more information before I can feel comfortable. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition to the petition?
Good day, gentlemen and ladies. My name is Alexander Sowden. I live at 317 West River Street, and I wish to just bring up a couple of points that may have already been made. But first of all, I'll say that I got taught long ago that I don't get paid any extra to emote, so I'm just going to speak facts, no emotions. First, it has been mentioned it's a very busy street. The corner intersection there is very bad. There is a stop sign on Meadow in which it is rarely done. It is very strongly probable that an accident will happen with any increase in traffic. The other thing is both of these roads, Meadow and West River, are only 2-lane roads. It's not like it's 4 or 5 lane thing where the church itself is located elsewhere in the city. This is a small street, and it has to be properly patrolled and watched over if there's an increase in traffic, particularly if you're going to have several small children in that area. Another point I'd like to bring up is that currently, many times the fire regulations are not followed in parking at the church because there's supposed to be no parking in the front where the yellow line is. There is all sorts of parking there. In addition to which, I've noticed now for over 3 days, there's been a pile of leaves leaning against the building, which is wood. I don't like the idea of that, particularly if there are going to be children in there. Normally, they keep the grounds very clean. That's not a question. But it becomes a fire problem if they continue to let leaves like that stay there. That pretty much covers my things. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to be heard in opposition to the petition? Seeing none, at this time, Ms. Rivera, I would encourage you to respond to certain of the points, or to all of the points actually, please, raised by the members of the public. If you wish to give us some of the points contained in your letter to the board, to Mr. Sulkus, that may be a effective way of conveying that information.
Okay, I'm currently located at 326 West Main Street here in Milford, which is technically a post road address. I'm currently licensed for 147 children. I would be licensed for approximately 130 children at 192 Meadow Street. I have been monitoring the traffic flow in and out of my building, both staff-wise, how many staff cars I have sitting in the lot, and also how many parent cars I have sitting in the lot. Drop-offs and pickups take 5 minutes. I plan on using the turnaround in the front and having a staff waiting there to receive the children, so that cars would be going through the turnaround in the front, and drop-offs happen from 7 o'clock until 9 o'clock in the morning. So where 130 kids might sound like a lot of children, but when you think about 5-minute intervals, and there's never more than 5 cars, anywhere between 3 and 5 cars, 5 being the max, at one time that are pulling, in to drop off their child. In terms of playground space or outdoor space, none of the children, we will not be using the front of the building for that. So the rear of the building, we don't require as much parking as Cornerstone Christian Center has required in the past. So one side of the building, the parking immediately adjacent to the building would be eliminated, and a new playground would be added there. It would be fenced in, as I mentioned on my plan, with the chain link fence. The bollards would be put there for protection of the children, but there will be no playgrounds in the front, no children on that road other than their parent dropping them off, like I said, within 5 minutes and picking them up within 5 minutes. Currently, we share a building with many other tenants. We don't have a problem with traffic or parking spaces. Oh, and I meant to mention that in terms of staffing, I never have more than 12 cars in the lot, and that's something I've been monitoring since submitting my petition, just to make sure before, because I had to submit this petition, how many cars I would have in the lot at one time. And that tends to be the norm. I think I've addressed everything.
Thank you, Ms. Rivera. Are there additional questions for Ms. Rivera from the board at this time?
Oh, excuse me, about the
Mr.
land, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I didn't address the landscaping issue. It's something that was not immediately addressed in terms of my taking over the building. However, between myself and the owners of Cornerstone, we would definitely have that taken care of. I have licensing requirements. Obviously, children's safety are my #1 concern, and so anything, I want it to look nice, I want it to be safe, I don't want it to be something that, kids can get hurt on. I wouldn't be licensed if that were to happen.
Thank you. Mr. Dolan?
I was just going to ask Ms. Rivera to address the landscaping issues.
Thank you. At this point, I would invite the members of the public who spoke to the board and raised issues at this time, if they wish to make any additional comment, either against or in favor of the application.
Good evening again. Patricia Wilson, 317 West River Street. It's very nice to know there'll be 132 cars going across the street from me every day. The hours she's talking about is the same time that every parent who doesn't drop their child off at Matheson or let the school bus take them to Matheson goes past my house. Now, in an hour's time, you can count almost, I would say, 30 to 40 cars coming up Matheson who do not stop at the stop sign directly across from the entrance to the turnaround in front of this church. So you will have those people coming up the street, people coming down from Matheson who've dropped off their children. At the same time, people are trying to do the 5-minute turnaround in front of this daycare and come out the other side. There's just too much traffic for this particular school to be on this intersection. I would request a traffic study. We have a lot of problems. We have tractor trailers who come up Meadow and get lost. A couple of weeks ago, they hit the tree on the end of the corner. I don't know if you know this, but there's a 100-year-old tree there that the city very nicely trimmed for us, but it's still there. Nobody uses that stop sign. Can you put a speed bump there? Is there any way to make people stop? You've got to come up and look at this intersection before you make the decision on this daycare. It is too busy for this neighborhood. It is not good for the rest of the people living here. We can't even get out of our driveway now. This is only going to cause us to get worse. This is not a good place for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there additional members of the public that wish to be heard in response to Ms. Rivera's rebuttal? Seeing none, Ms. Rivera, I'll give you one more opportunity if you wish to address any points that have yet to been made or were just made.
I just want to point out that Mathewson School, I understand the busy traffic and I understand how that could be worrisome in this neighborhood. Mathewson School gets started more at 8:30. Our drop-offs are more 7 to 8:30. I still understand it's 130 kids. not that they're all there at the same time and all of that, but, and the other thing I just want to bring up is that, you know, they're under parental control at that point. The parents are dropping them off, walking them in, a staff is getting them, meeting them at the door, bringing them into the building. Currently, we're on the post road, you know, and we deal with that, and we, you know, make sure that the children are safe. Like I said, I've been in business 19 years. I think that this would be a great addition to the neighborhood. You know, people like daycare, I hope. But, you know, I'm here to answer any other questions.
Thank you very much. At that point, we will close the public comment portion of the public hearing. At this point, I would ask the board if they have any additional questions for Ms. Rivera or Mr. Sulkus on the petition. Mr. Lutz.
Hi, have you done a traffic study?
Excuse me,
Have you done a traffic study?
I have not.
Are there any additional questions from the board relative to the petition? Mr. Sulkus, is there anything you wish to add about any of the points that have been raised so far?
What I can say is the original approval for that building was most likely a special permit, since that provision has been in our regulation for decades. So whatever the original approvals were for the site, if they included landscaping and fences, that's easy for us to enforce and make the church bring it up to the approval standards.
Mr. Sulkus, it appears the police commission signed off on traffic. Is that correct? Reviewing the materials in the administrative summary form, it says not applicable.
That would mean that it did not go there for their review.
Is that necessary for a use of the type that the petitioner is seeking?
It was probably a judgment call based on the prior use of the building, which was a much more intense use. And this was a use that's not as intense as the approved church. So it apparently was not sent.
Thank you. Is there anything further at this point from the board for Mr. Sulkus or the petitioner? Do any members of the board see any reason why we should not close the public hearing? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Is there any reason that the board has not to take the matter up for vote this evening? Seeing none, does anyone wish to make a motion relative to the petition? Mr. Grant.
At this time, I'd like to make a motion to approve the daycare facility at 192 Meadow Street.
Is there a second? Mr. Moore. Does anyone wish to be heard on the motion? Seeing none, we will call the question to a vote. All in favor of the motion? All opposed? The motion passes. Thank you very much, Ms. Rivera.
Thank you very much.
See you, Bruce. Good, how are you? Good to see you. Everything's good. Michael Lynch is good.
Next item on the agenda is 604 Naugatuck Avenue. It is the petition of Maria Torres for special permit and site plan review approval to establish a daycare center on map 18, block 370, parcel 8, of which Kingdom Life Christian Church, 597 Naugatuck Avenue, is the owner.
Hello.
Good evening, Ms. Torres.
Good evening. My name is Maria Torres, and I represent 604 Naugatuck Avenue to establish a daycare center of approximately 40 children.
I'll just ask you to lower the microphone towards you a little bit more. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, 40 children will be established in this daycare center.
And if you wouldn't mind, give us a bit of an overview. I know you submitted a letter to the board. If you would, just for the benefit of the public and the board, give us the overview.
I'm sorry?
You had submitted a letter dated October 24, 2016 to the board and the city. If you would just give us an overview just for the benefit of the members of the public who are with us this evening.
This would be a daycare center on 604 Norwood Avenue. Like I said, 40 children. We have parking spaces on the back of the building of 4 and additional 9 parking spaces next to the building. And then we have a playground fenced in the back of the building with the bollards for the children's protection.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sulkus, do you have comment on the petition?
The applicant proposes to convert an existing 3,500 square foot building to a child daycare facility. The site provides only 4 parking spaces where 14 are required. Access to the western end spot is impeded by a retaining wall. In a 11-716 resubmission, the applicant is proposing to use a parking area at 600 Naugatuck Avenue. The use of the neighboring lot would be allowed by Section 317.2.16 subsection 6, provided that information is provided to make a determination of parking adequacy. No survey or other information has been provided on 600 Naugatuck Avenue, which is listed by the Milford's Assessor's Office as a 2,000 square foot, 2-unit maintenance garage. Potential conflicts between the existing commercial uses and proposed daycare use should be examined. If approved, a lease would be needed to be provided to use 600 Naugatuck Avenue. The applicant proposes to use an outdoor play area, proposes to create an outdoor play area that will be enclosed by a chain link fence which will have bollards and wheel stops running along the front of the 4 proposed parking spaces. Interdepartmental reports. The police department rejected the application. See the attached report. The applicant has submitted more information to the police commission. No further police commission update will be available prior to tonight's meeting. The city engineer has required further information be provided. See the attached report. And the fire department is requiring that a sprinkler system be installed. See attached report.
Thank you, Mr. Sulkus. Does the board have questions for the petitioner or Mr. Sulkus at this time? Seeing none, at this point, I would open the public hearing up for public comment. Again, I ask if you are speaking either in favor or against the application to please state your name and address when you approach the podium. Please keep your comments brief. If you wish to exceed 3 minutes, please stop after that point, and then you can speak after everyone who has wished to speak has had the opportunity. That said, is there anyone at this point who wishes to speak in favor of the petition? Seeing none, is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the petition? Seeing none, we will close the public comment portion of the public hearing. Before closing the public hearing, is there any reason that we should keep the public hearing open? Does anyone wish to raise any issues as to why we should not close the public hearing at this meeting? Seeing none, Mr. Sulkus, do you think, is it appropriate at this point to close the public hearing?
At this, based on the information we have, yeah. I mean, we have been given no new information other than the letter stating that the applicant has given some new information to the police department, but we haven't been given that information.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Dolan.
Should we keep the public hearing open pending, just in case the police commission comes back with a report at the next hearing, or?
You could. It probably would be 2 meetings from tonight, based on the police commission's calendar.
I see on the agenda we have to close the public hearing by December 20th, Mr. Sulkus. Would that, if we postponed the matter or put the matter over until December 20th, do you feel that would give enough time to receive that information? And part B of that would be, if not, at that point, could we ask the petitioner if they wish to extend the time?
You can do, well, yes, you can ask them to extend the time. The 20th, I believe that the police department would be meeting the day before the meeting on the 20th, so we may or may not have an answer by then. Or it might be the week before. We can hope that there's an answer.
At this point, would it be appropriate to ask the petitioner for a 30-day extension of the deadline to close the public hearing to ensure that we have the police department and other departmental reports before closing the public hearing?
It'd be to extend the public hearing for 30 days. Yeah, as long as they give that to us in writing, that would be appropriate.
Ms. Torres, what is being proposed or I believe encouraged is your consent to extend the time period to close the public hearing by 30 days, which would roughly be towards the end of January 20th or January 19th, and that would allow for the board to receive the reports.
Okay.
That is something that you would have to provide your consent to in writing. Mr. Sulkus, would that be to your office?
Yes.
Okay. I would ask that you, that if you wish to extend the public hearing for those 30 days, that you please provide that authorization in writing to Mr. Sulkus's office.
Okay. Will do.
Mr. Grant.
I have a question. It was also mentioned about using another lot, that a lease would have to be drawn up for that. Would that be part of the documentation that would need to provide to us showing that that has been approved to use that other lot?
Your regulations require that a lease be provided. So the applicant, again, has not given our office any information other than what you have in front of you. The use of that lot, you're going to have to make a determination as to whether or not it's appropriate for that lot to be used based on the use of that lot currently. And even if they had use of that lot, you'd still have to make a parking determination because they still, I don't believe, would have enough parking for themselves, never mind the tenants who occupy 600 Naugatuck.
I'm sorry, the church granted us permission to let the employees park across the street on their lot.
Okay. Mr.
The
Sulkus.
employees, I'm sorry, the employees will not be parking behind the building or on the lot next to me, next to the 604.
Okay. That, I think, addresses an issue that is with Mr. Sulkus regard to the parking information. If the lease is necessary, that would be information that would have to be provided through Mr. Sulkus's office to the board.
Okay.
And then in that manner. So at this point, we will postpone the matter and put it back on the agenda for the first meeting in January. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is 14-26 Gulf Street, Phase 2, Zone SFA 10, petition of Thomas Lynch, Esquire, for special permit and site plan review approval to construct 7 residential units under Connecticut General Statutes, Section 830G, on map 66, block 813, parcels 13 and 14, of which 296 LLC is the owner. Good evening, Attorney Lynch.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Again, for the record, Thomas Lynch. And on this petition, I'm here tonight representing my client, 296 LLC, and its principals, Angelo Lisi and Greg Field, who are seated with me tonight. Also with me is Ron Wasmer, who has prepared the site plan that was submitted with the application, which I'm sure you've had an opportunity to review. He's going to go through that in detail. And lastly, David Spear. David has appeared before the board many times. He's a traffic engineer who has prepared a traffic study for the effect that traffic entering and leaving this property will have on Gulf Street and the surrounding areas, and we're going to submit a written report that he's going to go through in just a few minutes. But basically, this is the second phase of a project that my client started last year. We appeared before the board with an application for approval of 18 units. The ultimate approval was for 15 units on the site located at 14 Gulf Street. That approval was obtained. My clients, as you can see by driving by the site, have developed the property into a very attractive site. The units have all been built. They're up. They're rented. And the site speaks for itself. It's very attractive. The property located at 26 Gulf Street next door was purchased by my clients a few months ago, and that's what this application is being presented to you for tonight, is the development of that property at 26 Gulf Street. The proposal is to add 7 more units to the project. The result will be a total of 22 units on site. Each of the 7 units have 1 bedroom. The gross area for the units is some 1,500 square feet. The living space is approximately 915 square feet. As you can see from the buildings that are up, the new buildings and the new units will be similar in style. They'll have garages with living areas above. And as I said, they will be 1 unit dwelling units. The arguments that we made to you last year when we came before you for the project at 14 Gulf Street still hold true tonight, and I'd like to just reemphasize a couple of those points that I made to you last year. It was a concerted effort that was taken by the town some 15 years ago, hiring Dr. Alan Plattis of the Yale School of Architecture and the Yale Urban Study Center to come into Milford and make recommendations for development of the downtown area. With the development of the train station and the influx of young commuters and young residents who take the train every day to work, it actually was designed as part of that study to seek development in the downtown area and to create what was called an infill of residential development in the downtown area. And I represented the Smith Craft Development Company on a number of projects downtown, again, through the late 1990s and up until most recently. All of these projects downtown have brought people into the area. They support the shops, they support the restaurants, and this particular property is part of the continuing effort that the city has sought to encourage to develop this infill of residential living downtown. Now, one of the other features that we spoke of when we came before you a year ago was the fact that this property, with the fact that it's located in very close proximity to the CDD1 zone, could actually have been developed with a conforming application for residences with a affordable housing component. If you look at the zoning regulations for the CDD1 zone, it actually allows by special permit a residential development where at least 30% of the residents meet the income guidelines as set forth in Section 830G of our statutes. The reason we didn't do that at that time was another feature of the zoning regulation is that you need to have a minimum of 1 acre. And it's just interesting for notation at this point that the combination of the 2 properties, 16 Gulf Street and 14 Gulf Street and 26 Gulf Street, is now over 1 acre in size. So if we had the entire property at the time, we could have come in with a conforming application. So, you know, we've done this in 2 stages. We did not know at the time that the first development was going through that my clients were going to be able to obtain the Barnes property located at 26 Gulf Street. But I think it's just important for me to note to you that even though we are coming before you with an application that utilizes the features of Section 830G of our statutes, that in fact, if we had applied for a zone change to move the zone line over one property from the bank property located at the corner of Gulf Street and Cherry Street to include this property and the one at 14 Gulf Street, which both of them are located in the SFA 10 zone, that it would have come before you as a conforming application seeking exactly what my clients are looking to build now. So I think those are really important points to stress. Now, I did give you a handout at the outset in similar fashion as when I was before you 2 weeks ago with the Monroe Street project. I tabbed with a green tab the 5th page of the Affordability and Fair Housing Marketing Plan, which we're required by statute to submit to you. Actually, there's a new policy that the Office of the Community Development Director, in conjunction with the Office of Planning and Land Use, has devised so that a new form has been basically put together, and the information that's on pages 1 through 8 of the marketing plan conforms with these new requirements. Actually, I believe the file will indicate that there was a email that was issued by Sheila Dravis of the Office of Community Development. She's the Fair Housing Coordinator for the City of Milford. And yesterday afternoon, she did have the opportunity to review this document after it was submitted to her with some revisions. And there is an email that was issued from her office saying that this plan does conform with the standards of Section 830G. But by tabbing page 5 and over to page 6, I just wanted to give you an idea of the rents that would be generated from these 7 units. These are all 1-bedroom units, so the calculations that you see on pages 5 and 6 calculate rents based upon those individuals whose income matches or doesn't exceed 80% of the statewide median income, as well as those individuals whose incomes do not exceed 60% of the state median income. And the way that the statute is written, no less than 15% of the units in a project such as this can be with individuals earning less than the 60%. So in this 7-unit project, there will be 3 units designated as set-aside units for those meeting the income guidelines. 2 of the units will be for individuals at the 60% level, and 1 of the units will be for a family earning at the 80% level. And flipping over to page 6, with the calculations set forth in the regulations of the State Housing Department under 830G, and netting off a fair number that's set aside for utilities, it shows that the rent for those earning at the 80% level for one of these units would be $1,150.40 a month, and for an individual whose income does not exceed 60% of the state guidelines, the rent would be $910.63. I've also attached in this handout that I've given to you, starting just past page 8 of the affordability plan, a review of the department summaries and the department memorandas that were issued after review of the project. The first one is David's administrative summary form. Again, it speaks for itself. He addresses some of the concerns or some of the issues that were raised during the review, and basically they weren't concerns, they were notations, especially the fire marshal's request that because of the configuration of the parking lot, that these buildings have sprinkler systems installed inside of them. The Sewer Commission on September 16th issued approval for connection of this project to the wastewater system. There's a memorandum that was issued from Greg Podlusky to David that basically at the end summarizes that there's no outstanding engineering issues with regard to the project. These plans were prepared by Ron Wasmer. He met with Mr. Podlusky, and any comments or recommendations that he had made to the plans to Ron were submitted back prior to final plans being submitted to you. The Tree Commission, by way of memo on October 18th, reviewed the plans and said that the landscaping plan, as set forth in the sheets that Ron will go over in a second, meet their standards. The Milford Police Commission, at its meeting on October 7th of this year, issued a report basically adopting the findings that were submitted by Sergeant Craniac, who was the Traffic Division Planning and Zoning Review Officer. He says in his report that there are no sightline issues. There's only 7 additional units that are going to be built on this property. Again, with 1 bedroom, 7 units, a very minimal amount of traffic either entering or leaving the premises. So the Police Commission approved his report and issued the approval on October 7th. And then lastly, Gary Baker, the town's fire marshal, reviewed the plans. He felt that, again, with the configuration of the driveway, that it was his recommendation that the buildings have sprinklers installed inside of them, and that is part of the plan that's being submitted to you. So with that said, I submit to you that the standards that Section 830G of our statute set forth for projects such as this call for an approval absent any finding of public health and safety concerns. And again, the fire department and the police commission have both issued findings that verify that there are no health and safety concerns that are present with this project. David is going to go through his traffic report to, again, buttress that argument. But we submit to you that this is an improvement of the area. Anyone who has seen that stretch of Gulf Street between the bank and St. Mary's Church, you know the condition of the houses in that area. And there's 2 houses now that have really fallen into an area or a state of disrepair that my clients have now purchased. And we feel that it's truly an enhancement to the neighborhood. So with all that said, I'm going to turn things over to Ron. He's going to go through the site plan, and then David with the traffic report. Thank you.
Good evening, Ronald Wasmer, professional engineer, licensed land surveyor, with an office at 158 Research Drive, Milford, Connecticut. Here to present the plans and address any questions regarding the site plan and the associated site engineering. Tom has covered quite a bit of this. As stated, there's the proposals for 7 additional units to be combined with the 15 units that were previously built. The buildings will be very similar in architecture to the buildings that were recently constructed. This new particular buildings will have a stone veneer facing the parking lot as well as a stone veneer facing Cherry Street. The plan provides abundant parking for the residents and guests. We're proposing an additional driveway for emergency access only. Concrete curbs and concrete sidewalks will be extended along Gulf Street along the frontage of the property, providing pedestrian access to Cherry Street. The landscaping plan indicates new street trees along the frontage of the property. The utility plans indicate public sewer, public water, electric and gas, and an on-site storm drainage system. The plans include a sedimentation and erosion control plan. The plans also include an illumination plan for parking lot and demonstrate the conformance to the Milford lighting regulations. The plans have been reviewed by the various municipal departments and commissions for a site plan application and have received favorable review by all these departments. Just briefly walk you through the plans. The plan on the easel here is a colored landscaping plan. The buildings are shaded in brown, the parking lot is gray, and the landscaped area is in green. You can see Cherry Street to the left of the paper, Gulf Street to the left, Cherry Street to the north. The ShopRite Plaza is to the east. This is the building elevations, and again, with this particular set of buildings, we're proposing a stone veneer along the front facing the parking lot, as well as Cherry Street. Sheet S1 is a site plan, depicts the buildings and the parking lot, as well as an outline of the units which are going to be designated as affordable. Again, the landscaping plan indicating the proposed trees and details of such. Grading and drainage plan, we have an on-site storm drainage plan. This was submitted to the engineering department, reviewed by Greg Pedlewski and found to be acceptable. Utility plan, again, to demonstrate public utilities, water, sewer, gas, electric, for purposes of construction documents. A demolition plan indicating the building to be demolished. Erosion control plan as part of your site plan requirements. Illumination lighting plan demonstrating conformance that there's no light trespass off the property. Several miscellaneous details of the civil and site structures to be built. Existing condition survey, and last is a tax merger parcel indicating that the two tax parcels will be merged into one. I'll be happy to answer any questions. At this point, I will turn this over to David Spear, the traffic consultant.
For the record, my name is David Spear, principal engineer with DLS Traffic. My office is in Windsor, Connecticut, and we had done the original traffic study for 14 Gulf Street and had done a updated study for 26 Gulf Street. As indicated previously, the Phase 2 development includes 7 townhouse units. Our scope of study was essentially the same as the 14 Gulf Street study. We did a site visit, we did counts, we reviewed count data and accident data from the DOT. We did volume development at the Site Drive intersection and at the Gulf Street intersection with Cherry Street and Governor's Avenue. And we did capacity and queuing analysis at the 2 study intersections. Just to review from our previous submission, the volumes on Cherry Street, the latest CONDOT numbers were from 2012. And southwest of Sunnyside Court on Cherry Street, there were 12,200 vehicles per day. And that was 800 approximately 800 during the morning peak hour and 1,100 during the afternoon peak hour. On Gulf Street, there were 9,100 vehicles north of Route 162 on a daily basis, and that was 700 in the morning and 800 in the afternoon. Our counts showed at the site higher volume on Gulf Street. We had 850 vehicles during the morning and 1,000 during the afternoon. So that's the background volumes. We looked at the accident history. There were no significant trends or accident data that would be impacted by the proposed 7 units. We reviewed the sight lines and found that those were adequate for the posted speed limit, and were adequate to allow people exiting the site to see and be seen by oncoming traffic. If you flip to the end of the report, the end of the text, there's a figure number 2, which is the flow diagrams for the volumes that were analyzed. I'd just like to briefly explain what we did here. We took the 14 Gulf Street volumes and put those into the background condition for the upper left-hand set of numbers. So that includes all the traffic from 14 Gulf Street at both study intersections. Then if you move over to the right, we projected the 2017 volumes using a 1% growth in background traffic. So we increased the numbers 1%, and that gets you the projected background numbers. The lower left portion of the flow diagram shows the site-generated traffic, which for 7 units is very small number. That we're talking about 6 trips during the morning peak hour, 1 entering, 5 exiting, and 7 trips during the afternoon peak hour. That's 2 entering and 5 exiting. Those numbers were added to the site drive and to the Cherry Street, Gulf Street, Governor's Ave intersection. Then the distributed site traffic was added to the background traffic in the upper right corner to give you the total numbers in the lower right corner, which are the combined volumes, which is the traffic for both 14 Gulf Street and 26 Gulf Street. So we analyzed both study intersections during the AM and PM peak hours. Before and after we added the site traffic. And essentially there's no difference in the results of the analysis. The Cherry Street, Gulf Street intersection is a signalized intersection, and it operates at level of service C in the morning and level of service E in the afternoon, when the levels of service run from A to F, with A being the best and F being the worst. E is sort of an at capacity operation, which is what we have in the afternoon peak hour. When we add our site traffic to this intersection, there's no significant change in the level of service or the delays or the queuing. The Gulf Street site drive intersection operates at level of service A for the left turns turning into the site, and level of service B for the traffic exiting the site. The other thing we noted in our study, which we also noted in the 14 Gulf Street study, was that the queues from the signal at Cherry Street and Gulf Street extend south from Cherry Street. The site drive is approximately 200 feet south of the signal of the stop bar. So during the peak hours, the traffic during the red light, when Cherry Street has a green light, when Gulf Street has the red light, the queues will come back towards the site drive. And during the green interval on Gulf Street, that queue dissipates and clears out so that you can enter and exit the site drive. The phasing of that signal is 3 phases. So essentially what you have is the first phase, Cherry Street goes in both directions, and then in phase 2, Gulf Street gets a northbound green and a green arrow to turn left. And then in the third phase, Gulf Street and Governor's Ave both go simultaneously. So 2 out of the 3 phases, the Gulf Street northbound is clearing out to allow access to the site. So in conclusion, after reviewing the existing and proposed conditions at the site, we found that the existing traffic operations in the area will be maintained after completion of the additional units. The accident history showed no significant trends that would be impacted by site traffic. The intersection site distances were good for the posted travel speeds, for the posted speed limits, and based on the review of existing and proposed conditions and the capacity calculations, we determined that the site-generated traffic can be accommodated without any significant impact on area traffic or safety, traffic operations or safety. The levels of service at the study intersections are not significantly impacted by the very small number of site-generated trips. And the other thing we noted was the parking, the proposed parking is all contained on site, so that there's no off-street parking needed for this project. There's 59 total spaces for both properties. That's 22 garage spaces, 22 exterior spaces, and 15 visitor spaces. So after reviewing the complete development of the 7 additional townhouse units, we conclude that there would be no significant impact to area operations based on the expanded number of units. And I'll be available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. Mr. Lynch, do you have anything further?
No, that's our presentation to you tonight, and again, any questions that the board may have, we can address those after the public comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Lynch. Mr. Sulkus, do you have comment on the application?
Mr. Lynch summarized my comments pretty well. I could read to you my report if you want, but he pretty much, hit the highlights.
Fair enough. Are there any questions from the board for Mr. Sulkus or Attorney Lynch and the members of his team? Mr. Nichol.
Yeah, for Mr. Spear. Most of this stuff was generated 11/9. It's a Tuesday at 3:34 p.m. What would happen if this was Saturday at 4:30 or 5 o'clock at night, or Sunday between 7 and 11?
Based on the available count data, the peak hours in the area are the commuter peaks, which is the AM rush hour and the PM rush hour. So when we did our counts, we do counts in 2-hour blocks, 7 to 9 a.m. and 4 to 6 p.m., and we take the busiest hour out of those time periods to determine the peak hour. Generally, the Saturday and Sunday volumes are expected to be lower than the weekday PM peak and AM peak hours.
That's not the way I see it. When I read this report, I see 3:34 p.m., 3:15 p.m., and I don't see that as a peak hour. And also, if you figure in St. Mary's letting out church on a Saturday or Sunday, you're dealing with 1,000 cars, but I see nothing on here that even reflects that. So I don't know where your peak hours come from. I would think the peak hours would be like from 6:30 to maybe 8:30 in the morning, and then 4:30 to probably 6:30 in the evening, and you're nowhere near that.
We compared our data to the state data, and our peaks are consistent with the state peaks, and we have no reason to believe that the peaks would be different than what we are using here.
Are there further questions for the petitioner? Mr. Moore.
One quick question in regards to the site plan. Is there an area where kids can play that you established? Last time I drove by the site, the current site, I saw a few kids trying to ride their tricycles in the parking lot, which is like, it's kind of disturbing, but I didn't know if there's anything else going on for the new plan.
I'm sorry, was that, I missed the first part of that question.
for the site plan, was there a designated area like a playground or some sort where kids can play or anything like that?
I think that's a question for Ron.
There is an area behind the last building in the first phase, Carl. I don't know if you recall, Gene Servin, I think, made that a condition of the approval that a landscaped area with a playscape be set up in there. So that's going, it's either being developed now or it's going to go into that area.
Thank you.
And that'll service this second phase as well.
So to be part of both?
But that's correct, yep.
Are there additional questions, Mr. Lutz?
Yes, behind the 7 new units, is there any exit from the units to the back?
No.
There is?
No, there's not.
No, there is not.
Right.
Okay. Is there going to be a fence back there between this project and the neighboring?
Yeah, the old ShopRite property in the back there?
No, it would be to the
Or
house. South, going south.
To the right side of the next house on Gulf Street, yes.
What kind of fence, what would it be?
It's a 6-foot stockade fence is
6-foot
proposed.
stockade fence?
It's indicated on the plans.
Okay.
Are there further questions for the petitioner?
Can I just make a comment to address Tom Nichols'
Sure.
comment? Because I go to St. Mary's Church as well. And I think in terms of, and I'm not a traffic engineer, but in terms of calculating peak hours, you talk about a flow of traffic as it goes through an hour. And with all due respect, I think it takes about 10 minutes for the traffic to leave St. Mary's Church, take a right-hand turn to go towards Cherry Street, and then dissipate either westbound on Cherry or northbound on Cherry heading out towards the mall. So I think that there is a concentration of traffic that comes out of the church, but quite literally, in my experience, within 10 minutes, it's off the site. So in terms of statistics that a traffic engineer utilizes in terms of coming up with a study, I think that's an aberration, because you're looking at an event that's happening at the church that takes cars out and puts it onto the street, but very quickly it dissipates. That's my only comment.
Can I respond to that? When I do a traffic study, and I'm not a traffic engineer, I would pick the peak times. And Saturday and Sunday would be a peak time. Not 3:15 in the afternoon or 7 o'clock in the morning, as this report depicts. And when you put down for a traffic study that you were there for 0.25 hours, that doesn't tell me a lot, that you were spending 15 minutes to do this job.
No, we took typical peak periods and we did 2-hour blocks. If you look at the actual counts, they're 2-hour blocks, 4 to 6 and 7 to 9 in the morning. Your church, if you actually had 1,000 in attendance, the vehicle occupancy is 3 people per vehicle. So you're talking about 300, 350 vehicles at the most, if you in fact had 1,000 attendance. But you're just arbitrarily saying you need to look at the weekend, when I've been doing this for 30 years, and we study the commuter peak hours, and they are significantly higher than the weekend traffic. And there's nothing on record, there's nothing that you've presented that says anything different, that says that the peak happens on the weekend. There's no reason to be looking at the weekend.
I'm not judging you as an expert in traffic. I'm looking at your report. And right here it says study period hours, 0.25, November the 9th, AM peak hour.
What are you referring to? I don't know what you're talking about. Where? What page?
I believe Mr. Nichol is referring to Going from the back of your package that you submitted, the
attachment?
pages going backwards from the last page.
The capacity analysis? That study period indicates that we included a peak hour factor so that we analyzed the peak within the peak hour so that the peak 15 minutes was assumed to happen during 4 15-minute intervals to provide a more conservative analysis. The analysis is not a 15-minute analysis. It's based on peak hour traffic. The volumes in the volume line are all hourly volumes, and they're the total volumes going through the study intersections.
Are there further questions from the board at this time? Mr. Spear, I have a question relative to the accident history. Do you have documentation or information as to accidents in the subject area from the time that the existing units have been occupied?
No, that is not available yet. We get our accident data from the DOT, and they are slow to update their database.
That's not something you would obtain from the Milford Police Department?
We typically get it from the DOT because the towns submit all their data to the DOT. So they have a more organized and comprehensive database and presentation of the accident information.
Do you have any anecdotal information about accident in the area since the existing units have been occupied?
Yes, we do. My clients, actually, Mr. Lisi just said to me that the entire time they've been on the site, and between he and Greg Field, they're there every day, there has not been any accidents in front of the site. So that is anecdotal, but I'm submitting it for the record.
That was the question.
All right,
Thank you,
thanks.
Mr. Lynch. Are there further questions from the board at this time? Seeing none, at this time, we will open the public comment portion of the hearing. And as indicated in previous public hearings this evening, I would ask those that come before us to speak to please state your name and address. Please spell your name for the record. Please address all of your comments to the commission and not the applicants themselves. And please keep your comments concise to the point. Please try not to exceed 3 minutes, just so we can hear from everyone. After everyone has spoken, certainly you can speak again. At this point, is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the application? Seeing none, is there anyone who wishes to be heard in opposition to the application? Good evening.
Hello, my name is Chelsea Ambrositis, recently of 19 Gulf Street, a very close neighbor. I represent the group that Milford is looking to attract, a young professional. I commute by car every day, and pulling out of my driveway is sometimes a nightmare based on the traffic, but I don't want to focus on that right now. What I'd like to focus on is the fact that while these are meant to be one-bedroom apartments, and the committee is, or the board, excuse me, is comfortable with that, these are not one-bedroom apartments. There are families with 2 and 3 children living in these apartments. And while I support families and their needs, I question the management of this facility based on the fact that we are turning a blind eye to the regulations set forth by this board. Thank you.
I'm sorry, ma'am, can we have your last name again for the record? If you could spell it, please. My apologies.
There's a song, that would help. Ambrositis, Ambrozaitis. And a second note, at no time has anyone approached us in the last 3.5 months since purchasing our property about anything, any of these plans. Have yet to see them they're there every day, they haven't said hi. So not very friendly neighbors overall.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to be heard in opposition to the application? Seeing none, that will close the public comment portion. Attorney Lynch, do you or members of your team wish to respond to public comment?
Yes, thank you. Just the one comment about the children. My client, Mr. Lisi, tells me, and these are one-bedroom units, you have the floor plans that have been submitted to you. They're the same plans for Phase 1. There are, in the 15 units in the constructed portion of the property now, there are 2 young individuals, single parents with a child. And one of them, Mr. Lisi, is currently building a house, and that person is going to be moving from the apartment into a house that Mr. Lisi is building for them. So, you know, just to address that issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Lynch. Do any members of the public wish to be heard in rebuttal to the rebuttal of the petitioner? Seeing none, we will close the public comment portion. At this point, are there any further questions from the board for the petitioner or Mr. Sulkus? Seeing none, at this point, does the board wish to proceed to a vote? Or I know certain of the members did not have the benefit of the full materials before coming this evening. Would the board, is there a consensus as to postponing a vote, an ultimate vote, closing the public hearing, and voting at the next meeting? Any objection to proceeding in that manner? We will do so. Thank you very much, Attorney Lynch, and your team. Next item on the agenda is 132-140 Monroe Street. It's the petition of Thomas Lynch for special permit and site plan review approval to construct 9 residential units under Connecticut General Statutes 8-30G on map 20, block 259, parcels 4B and 4C, of which Green Turtle LLC is the owner. At the last meeting of this board, we closed the public hearing for deliberation and ultimate vote by the board. Good evening, Mr. Lynch.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman. The public hearing is closed. I'm not submitting any further materials, but I do want to just, from a procedural point of view, address something. We told you at the November 1st meeting that the affordability and marketing plan was under review from the Office of Community Development. I think David's summary sheet showed at the bottom that it was pending, and as I just mentioned, relative to the Gulf Street project, we submitted the revised affordability plan to the Office of Community Development, and they issued, or not they, Sheila Dravis, the Fair Housing Officer, issued an email to myself, copied Mr. Sulkus as well as Phyllis for the file, the effect that the marketing plan was accepted and approved by the Office of Community Development. So I think we talked about that at the public hearing, that they were still reviewing it. I just wanted it noted for the record that they have reviewed it and they have issued a memorandum of approval. Right.
Thank you, Attorney Lynch. At this point, does anyone wish to make a motion relative to this petition? Mr. Dolan.
Well, I guess before I make my motion, can I make a comment? I guess my comment is with respect to 132 to 140 Monroe Street. I'll make a motion to approve it, not necessarily because I think it's a great project or conforms with the character of the neighborhood, and I can understand why some neighbors might have apprehensions about it being granted, but the fact is that it's being brought under the 830G statute. We've had a number of these come before the board, and these 830G applications, they don't need to comply with Milford's regular regulations. The developers have very low burden they have to carry to get these projects ultimately approved. I think if we turned it down, I think we would lose on appeal for sure, based on my experience on the board. And for that reason, and basically that reason alone, I am going to make a motion to approve the project as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Dolan. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Grant, does anyone wish to be heard on the motion? Seeing none, we'll call the question to a vote. All in favor of the motion? All opposed? The motion passes. Thank you, Attorney Lynch. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing that has been left open relative to proposed text regulation changes. This is the petition of Kevin Kersaden for a change in the zoning regulations largely involving base flood elevation, building height within a flood hazard area, building height in SFHA zones AE or VE, and design flood elevation. At this point, we've received no further information relative to the changes. I believe at this point it is appropriate to close the public hearing. However, due to the impact of the regulation changes, I would urge the board to review the materials and ask that we take this up a vote on the regulation changes as presented by Attorney Kersaden at the next meeting. Does anyone have any position as to why that should not be done this evening? Seeing none, we will put that over. We'll close the public hearing, and we will deliberate on that at our next meeting, the first meeting of December. Next, in the beginning of the evening, we passed the first item on the agenda, which was the 824 approval of the Mayor's Capital Improvement Plan, pending seeing if anyone was coming from the city. It appears that is not the case. However, I believe that I think it is something we can take up this evening if we wish to do so. As you saw in your packets, this is the capital improvement plan for the city of Milford from 2017 to 2021. Mayor Blake writes us that this program is a planning tool and it identifies the basic capital needs of the city over the next 5 years. Mayor Blake points out in his memorandum to the board that this plan does not set priorities and it does not carry any funding commitment. He states that funding realities will dictate what is able to be paid for and what will have to be deferred. At this point, I would like to make a motion to approve the capital improvement plan as proposed for this board. Or I would make a motion to for this board to approve the capital improvement plan submitted by Mayor Blake. Is there a second? Mr. Lutz. Does anyone wish to be heard on the motion? Mr. Grant.
Yeah, I had a question. In going through the thing, one of the questions I had for the city was, there's close to $7 million in this proposal for consulting fees. And my question to the city would be, there's other cities that have what they call capital improvement offices, where they basically have like an engineer or an architect that are basically would take these type of projects and do the paperwork for that. They would put the drawings together, the proposals together, and so on like that. And one of the questions I have to the board is, instead of spending $7 million to consultants on these projects, or thereabout, because these aren't exact figures, why can't the city put together, hire an engineer, hire an architect to take and do this rather than hiring outside people and bring it all in-house and save the city a bunch of money?
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Does anyone else wish to be heard on the motion? Seeing none, we'll call the question to a vote. All in favor of the motion? All opposed? The motion passes. Thank you. The next item on the agenda Our liaison reports. Do any members have liaison reports this evening? Seeing none, the next item on the agenda is the Regulations Subcommittee. Mr. Grant, do you have a report this evening?
Nothing at this time.
Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes for October 18, 2016, and November 1st, 2016. Does anyone wish to make a motion relative to the approval of the minutes for the October 18, 2016 meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Mr. Grant, is there a second? Mr. Moore. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. Does anyone wish to make a motion to approve the minutes for the November 1st, 2016 meeting?
They may not have read them. We can wait.
Those, I believe, were given to the board this evening. We can postpone that to the next meeting, and we will do that. We will put that over to the next meeting. Next on the agenda is the chair's report. I do not have a report this evening. Next item on the agenda is staff report. Mr. Sulkus, do you have a report this evening?
Not this evening.
That brings us to the last item, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn? Mr. Dolan, is there a second? Mr. Marlowe, all in favor? We stand adjourned.